Hello and welcome to edupediaworld.com. In the last session we have discussed about the law of demand, the analysis of market demand. We'll be continuing with the analysis of market demand by discussing about the elasticities of demand. Now, defining upon the elasticity of demand, it means the degree of responsiveness of demand to the change in its determinants is called elasticity of demand. There are various types of elasticity of demand. Like elasticity of demand basically means that by how much percentage demand changes when there is a change in any one of the determinant of the demand. There are various types of elasticity of demand depending upon the determinants it has. Starting with, we'll be discussing about the price elasticity of demand. Now, before I get into specific discussion of elasticity, price elasticity, let me ask you a question. Suppose if a business wants to generate more revenue, what should it do? Should it increase the price of its commodity, or should it decrease the price of its commodity? Now, I'm asking you this question because one of my friend is who is running a children's bookstore. She asked me this question as when she found out that I'm an economist. She was asking me that whether should I go on offering more discounts on the books in order to increase my purchase. Now the answer to this question is that it depends. I take two examples. Suppose the electricity board of a country wants to increase its revenue. What will it do? It will simply increase the prices per unit of the electricity supplied. And similarly, if suppose a airlines it wants to increase its revenue, what it will do? It will slash down the prices of the tickets it's charging. Now, which approach amongst these two is correct? I would say they both are. See, when I raise my prices, I know that the quantity demanded will drop following the law of demand. But by how much? The law of demand does not tells this. When I raise my price, my customers would be very sensitive to the price increase, cutting back a lot on their purchases. Now this will affect me badly because I will lose a lot of my revenue. Similarly, if I know that if I raise my prices, there will be very little effect on the purchases. That is, the customers will not be reacting too much on the increase of the price. Now, this is good because I would see increase in my overall revenue by increasing the prices of the product. So the crucial issue here is to find out how sensitive my customers will be to a price change. Now the answer to this question is given by price elasticity of demand. So now what is price elasticity of demand? Price elasticity of demand is the percentage change in demand as a result of 1% change in the price of the commodity. Now if we have to measure it through a equation, now I will teach you that how to calculate the price elasticity of demand. Suppose we have this demand function dx is equals to 100 minus 5px. Now through this demand function, as we have already learned that we can calculate the individual demand schedule px dx, and suppose we assume the prices to be 5, 10, 15, 20. Substituting the value of px by the assumed prices, we can get the value of dx. Suppose I solve out for the first case 100 minus 5, and here instead of px we put 5, the assumed value of px. We get the demand quantity demanded as 75. Likewise, in the second case, when we substitute the value of px by 10, we get the value of quantity demanded as 50, then 25, then 0. Now what you have to do is you have to calculate the price elasticity of demand for a increase in price from $10 to $15. You have to calculate the price elasticity of demand for an increase in price from $10 to $15. Now how do we calculate this? Revising upon the equation, the price elasticity of demand is equal to percentage change in quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in price of the commodity. So if we have to solve it out, it's like this: Q1 minus Q0 upon Q0 into 100 divided by P1 minus P0 upon P0 into 100. Now Q1 is the quantity demanded, the new quantity demanded when the price has changed, and Q0 was the initial quantity demanded. Likewise, P1 is the price which is after the change, and P0 was the initial price. So substituting the values in the equation, we get, in our example, Q1 is equals to, see, initial price was P0 was 10. After the change, the price P1 is equals to 15. Likewise, initial quantity demanded was Q0 was 50, and after the change, the quantity demanded Q1 is 25. So Q1 is 25, Q0 is 50. Likewise, P1 is 15 and P0 is 10. Solving this out, substituting the values in the numerical, we get 25 minus 50 upon 50 into 100 divided by 15 minus 10 upon 10 into 100. So here 100 will get cancelled out. So it would be minus 25 divided by 50 upon 5 upon 10. Solving this out, we get minus 2. So as I have already discussed that always the price elasticity of demand will be in negative, which shows that there is a negative relationship or there is an inverse relationship between the price of the commodity and the quantity demanded. So we get the price elasticity of demand to be 2. This is how we solve out the numerical example. Now what do we exactly find out by calculating the price elasticity of demand of a commodity? Like we got the answer as 2. What does this means? This basically means that for an increase in price of the commodity X by 100%, the quantity demanded of commodity X will fall by 200%. That if there is a 1% increase in the price of commodity X, there will be a fall in quantity demanded by 2%. So the producer of commodity X has to think twice before increasing its price because the demand of commodity X is highly sensitive to the price changes. And the producer he might have to lose a majority of market share due to the increase in the price of the commodity. My next question is, like, for an increase in the price of commodity X by 1%, there is a 2% fall in the quantity demanded of X. Will it be 2% also for a fall in the price of commodity X? Means if we decrease the price by 1% of commodity X, will the increase in the demand of commodity X will be 2%? The answer is no. Let us check this out. Suppose we have the same demand schedule. Px is 5, 10, 15, 20 and dx is 75, 50, 25, 0. Now you have to calculate price elasticity for a decrease in price from $15 to $10. Initially we have calculated for an increase in price. Now we have to calculate for a decrease in price. Now again, in this particular case, 10 is our P1 and 15 is our P0. That is $15 is the initial price and now it has fallen down to 10. So it's the final price. Now the quantity demanded was initially 25 and when the price has fallen down from 15 to 10, the quantity demanded has increased from 25 to 50. So 50 is our final quantity demanded. Substituting the values, we get Q1 minus Q0 upon Q0 into 100 divided by P1 minus P0 upon P0 into 100. Substituting the values here, we get 50 minus 25 upon 25 into 100 divided by 10 minus 15 upon 15 into 100. Now this is, you have to substitute the values very carefully. Most of the students make the mistake here while substituting the values. So before substituting the values, just clearly define that what is Q1, what is Q0, what is P1, what is P0, then you will get the answer correct. Cancelling out 100, we get 25 upon 25 divided by minus 5 upon 15. Solving this out, we get minus 3.03. So for a decrease in price of commodity X by 1%, there is a 3% increase in the quantity demanded of commodity X. Like we have seen in the last example that when there was an increase in price of commodity X by 1%, there was decrease in the quantity demanded by 2%. But for a decrease in price the demand has changed by 3%. So it's not the same for the increase and decrease both. It changes. So in this particular case, the producer can go for decreasing the price because he will again increase the market share as well as his revenue altogether. So this is why it's very important to study price elasticity of demand to see that how consumers react to changes and how, and it also provides a measure to see the sensitivity of the consumers towards the price changes of a particular commodity. Now, concluding, like in this example, we have seen that the product X was highly sensitive to the price changes. So this is elastic demand. Likewise, there are 5 degrees of elasticity of demand. Let's see them. First one is elasticity of demand is equal to 0, which means the demand is perfectly inelastic. Now what does this mean? It means that if there is change in price, it will have no effect at all on the quantity demanded. Let's see how we can represent that graphically. Degree of elasticity of demand. The first one is perfectly inelastic demand. Now in this case, as I told you, that whatever is the price changes, there will be no change in the quantity demanded. On x-axis, we take the quantity demanded, and on y-axis, the price of the commodity. So we see that the price is changing and the quantity demanded remains the same. It's a curve which is parallel to the y-axis. When the price was P0, the quantity demanded was QD. Again, when the price increased to P1, again the quantity demanded was QD. So this particular thing we find in case of necessities, like the consumption of which the consumers cannot avoid. If the prices of such goods changes, of such commodities changes, the consumer has no option but to buy them at high prices. So the demand of these commodities remains same. We illustrate it as elasticity of demand is equals to 0. The second degree is inelastic demand. Now in case of inelastic demand, the percentage change in demand as a result of percentage change in price will be less. That is, if the price changes by 1%, there will be less than 1% change in the quantity demanded. The demand curve goes like this. This is the DD demand curve. So we can see here that the percentage change in price is more, whereas the percentage change in demand is less. This is suppose our demand curve QD. The price has changed from P0 to P1. There is an increase in price, but the demand has changed in a less proportion from Q1 to Q0. This is the change in price, but this is the change in demand. So this we find out in case of again necessities and comforts. People react less to the price changes of these type of goods. So the elasticity of demand is less than 1 in this case. We depict it like this. Elasticity of demand is less than 1. That is, 1% change in the price of the commodity has less than 1% change in the demand of the commodity. The third degree of elasticity is unit elasticity. Now, unit elasticity is like if there is 1% change in the price of the commodity, there will be 1% change in the quantity demanded of the commodity. We show it graphically like this. We can see here that whatever percentage change is in the price of the commodity, the same is the change in the demand of the commodity. If the price has increased from P0 to P1, the demand has decreased from Q1 to Q0. So this particular curve shows the unit elasticity. Here in this particular case, ED will always be equal to 1. That is 1% change in the price of the commodity will have a 1% change in the quantity demanded of the commodity. Now next type of degree of elasticity is where demand is elastic. That is ED is greater than 1. So 1% change in the price of the commodity in this case causes more than 1% change in the quantity demanded of the commodity. This is the curve. So we can see here that there is a slight change in the price whereas the demand has changed more. So this is the case of where ED is greater than 1. The price has increased from P0 to P1, but the demand has fallen down from Q1 to Q0, and the percentage change in demand is more than the percentage change in price. The numerical example which we have done was a case of elastic demand. Next is the fifth degree of elasticity is perfectly elastic demand. Now, in case of perfectly elastic demand, there the price remains same and the demand increases or decreases at the same price. We see that the price is the same, but the demand is going on increasing. So this is the case of perfectly elastic demand. This is the demand curve. It is denoted by ED is equal to infinity. That the demand will go on increasing at the same price. So these were the 5 degrees of elasticity of demand. We have noted that price elasticity of a product may vary from 0 to infinity. However, price elasticity of demand at a given price varies from product to product depending on the following factors. First one is availability of substitutes. The closer substitute of a commodity is available in the market, the higher will be the price elasticity of the demand of that particular product. For example, we take the example of tea and coffee. If the price of tea increases, people immediately switch over to the consumption of coffee. So the demand of tea decreases at a very faster pace. So the price elasticity of demand in case of tea and coffee is more than 1. That is, with a 1% change in the price of tea, there is more than 1% change in the demand of tea. So the closer the substitute available of a commodity, the price elasticity of demand will be elastic. Next determinant is nature of the commodity. Now, commodities, as we have studied earlier, can be grouped under luxuries, comforts, and necessities. Now, demand for luxury goods, that is high price refrigerators, TV, cars, decoration items, etc., is more elastic than the demand for necessities and comforts, because the consumption of luxury goods can be postponed when their prices rise. Therefore, the elasticity also depends upon the nature of the commodity. The next determinant is weightage in the total consumption. Now, what does this means? It means that if proportion of the total income spent on a commodity is large, its demand will be more elastic. On the other hand, if the proportion of the total income spent on a commodity is small, so its demand will be inelastic. For say, we can take the example of salt, sugar, matchboxes, books, pens. As we know that the proportion of income spent on these commodities is very small. So if their price will rise, it won't affect very much. It won't affect the consumer very much. So they will not change the demand, that is, decrease the demand proportionately. There will be less than 1% change in the demand of the commodities on which the proportion of income spent is less, is small. The next factor is time factor in adjustment of consumption pattern. Now, what does this mean? This means that the longer the time available, the greater will be the price elasticity of demand of that particular product. The reason is that over a period of time, consumers are able to adjust their expenditure pattern to price changes. For example, if the price of TV sets has decreased, demand of that particular product will not increase immediately unless people possess excess purchasing power. But with time, people may be able to adjust their expenditure pattern so that they can buy a TV at a lower price. So time factor plays a very important role in determining the price elasticity of demand. The next factor is range of commodity use. If a commodity can be put to various uses, that is, there are n number of uses of a particular commodity, that commodity will have greater price elasticity for a decrease in the price of that particular commodity. For example, we can take the example of electricity, which can be put to use for lighting, cooking, heating, industrial purposes, etc. So demand for electricity has a greater elasticity when the price decreases, because now the consumer can increase the use of electricity. But on the other hand, if the price of electricity increases, it will have lower price elasticity, because electricity is an important thing and people cannot decrease the consumption of electricity beyond a certain limit. So the price elasticity for a increase in price of electricity will be inelastic. The next determinant is proposition of market supplied. It means that if less than half of a market is supplied at a particular price, the price elasticity of demand will be higher, because if the price increases and because very few people are using that product, so they will decrease the demand instantaneously. But if more than half of the market is supplied at a particular price, the demand of that particular product will be inelastic. Now the next type of elasticity of demand is the income elasticity of demand. Here we see the percentage change in quantity demanded due to the percentage change in the income of the consumer. Now this is the way how do we calculate the income elasticity of demand. The income elasticity of demand is equal to percentage change in quantity demanded due to percentage change in income of the consumer. Y denotes the income of the consumer. Let's take an example. Suppose the income of a consumer has increased from rupees 20,000 to rupees 22,000 per month, due to which he has increased the demand of petrol from 150 liter to 165 liter per month. Now in order to calculate the income elasticity of demand, we do it like this: Q1 minus Q0 upon Q0 into 100 divided by Y1 minus Y0 upon Y0 into 100. Now substituting the values, we get this. The initial income of the consumer was rupees 20,000 and the final income is 22,000. So 20,000 is Y0 and 22,000 is Y1. Whereas the initial consumption, that is the quantity demanded of petrol, was Q0 was 150 liter, and after the change it's 165 liter, so Q1 is 165 liter. So 165 minus 150 upon 150 into 100 divided by 22,000 minus 20,000 upon 20,000 into 100. Solving this out, we get the elasticity of demand as equal to 1. So which clearly specifies that with a 1% change in the income of the consumer, there is a 1% change in the quantity demanded of petrol. Now likewise, in case of income elasticity also, we have different degrees of elasticity, but that depends upon the type of product. We classify all the products into 3 categories. That is inferior goods, normal goods, and luxury goods. And we see the degree of elasticity here as in case of inferior goods, the income elasticity of demand is always less than 0. That is, there is a negative elasticity of demand. Because as and on the consumer's income rises, the consumer switches over his consumption from inferior goods to normal or superior goods. So that's why the income elasticity of demand in case of inferior goods is less than 0. In case of normal goods, it's between 0 to 1. That is, the income elasticity of demand is inelastic, because even if the consumer's income is increasing, there's a limit to the use of normal goods. So he won't be increasing much the consumption of normal goods. And it's always positive because as the consumer's income increases, he increases the consumption of normal goods, so it's always positive. In case of luxury goods, it is always greater than 1, that is, it is highly elastic. As the consumer's income increases, he increases the consumption of luxury goods. He creates more demand of luxury goods in the market. So it is always greater than 1. Now when we graphically denote it, we see that in case of inferior goods, because it is inversely, the income of the consumer is inversely related to the demand of inferior goods of the consumer. So there is a curve which is negatively sloping. The level of income is increasing, the demand for inferior goods is decreasing. In case of normal goods, as the level of income is increasing, up till a certain level, the quantity demanded of normal goods increases, but after a certain increase in the level of income, it becomes like the rate of increase of quantity demanded of normal goods decreases. So we see the curve like this. Initially it was increasing up till a certain level of income, but after a certain point it stables down and there is no steep increase here. In case of luxury goods, we see that as and on, like beyond only a level of income, the consumer increases the quantity demanded of luxury goods. Up till a certain level of income, he was not demanding luxury goods, but after a certain increase in level of income, he started demanding luxury goods, and as and on the income is increasing, the demand for luxury goods is increasing. So we see here that the elasticity of demand in case of luxury goods is greater than 1. In case of normal goods, it's between 0 to 1, whereas in case of inferior goods, it's less than 0. And there are certain factors which affects the income elasticity of demand. The first being the nature of the commodity, that is whether the commodity belongs to inferior goods, luxury goods, or normal goods. So accordingly, the elasticity varies. The time period, that is whether the income changes for a longer time period or for a shorter time period. Then the demonstration effect, we have studied about demonstration effect earlier also. Then frequency of increase in income, that is how many times in a year the income is increasing. So accordingly also the elasticity of demand varies. Now next we come to the third type of elasticity of demand, that is cross elasticity of demand. Now cross elasticity of demand, here we see the effect of change in price of a substitute or a complement good and what effects it does on the quantity demanded of a commodity. That is, it is the measure of responsiveness of demand to the changes in the price of its substitutes and complementary goods. Now we calculate it by using this formula. Suppose we take the substitutes as tea and coffee and we want to see the elasticity of demand of tea due to the change in the price of coffee. So it will be denoted as this. Elasticity of demand of tea will be equal to percentage change in quantity demanded of tea, which is as a result of percentage change in price of coffee. So this is how we calculate the cross elasticity of demand. Now here this concept basically helps us to determine that whether two goods are substitute or complement goods. See, if the cross elasticity of demand of a particular commodity is positive, then it's a substitute good. Because we have also already studied earlier that when the price of a particular commodity increases, the demand of its substitute also increases. Similarly, if the cross elasticity of demand of a particular commodity is negative, that particular good is complementary. Complement means if the price of a particular commodity increases, the demand of the complement product decreases. So there's a negative relationship as compared to the price and quantity demanded in case of complement goods, whereas there's a positive relationship. So cross elasticity basically can help us to determine that whether the relationship between two goods is substitute goods or complement goods. So this was all about the analysis of market demand. We have studied about the various determinants of market demand, then we have studied about demand function, then elasticities of demand. In the next session, we'll be starting with demand forecasting. Till then, thank you and have a nice time.